What if I told you the U.S. finally gave the green light for Chinese tech giants to buy tens of thousands of highly coveted AI chips, yet the number of chips actually delivered so far is exactly zero?
I mean, it sounds completely backwards. You have buyers with, billions of dollars ready to spend,
Right.
and a seller desperate to ship the product. You would naturally assume the cargo planes were loading up the very minute the approval came through.
Exactly. It feels like a setup to a joke.
Hmm.
But this is the actual reality of the global technology landscape today.
Yeah, it really is.
We have a huge stack of recent reports sitting between us, all focused on one specific piece of hardware, which is NVIDIA's H200 AI chip. And for you listening, our goal for this deep dive is not to just read off financial news.
No, definitely not.
We're here to unpack a bizarre, high-stakes staring contest between two global superpowers and, well, one of the largest companies on Earth.
And that context is really what makes these reports so fascinating. The entire narrative of the global chip war has completely flipped. Well, for years, the only headline was, the U.S. refuses to let China buy advanced technology. But now we're looking at a fundamentally new reality.
Right, the script flipped.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
U.S. has laid out conditions to sell, but China might actually be choosing not to buy.
I really want to understand the mechanics of why nothing is moving. Let's look at what is sitting on the table first and who the buyers are supposed to be.
Okay, sounds good.
According to the Commerce Department reports, about 10 major Chinese companies were cleared to buy these NVIDIA H200 chips. We are talking about massive everyday names here.
Like who?
Alibaba, Tencent, ByteDance, the company that runs TikTok, and JD.com.
The reports also highlight that major hardware distributors, companies like Lenovo and Foxconn, received approval too.
Oh, the middlemen.
Right. They are the essential middlemen who handle the actual physical logistics of moving these massive servers.
What really jumps out at me, though, is the sheer volume they're allowed to buy. The government set a cap of up to 75,000 chips per approved customer. Yeah, that is an enormous amount of computing power.
It is a staggering scale. To put that into perspective for a second, running a very sophisticated, world-class AI model might require, 10 or 20,000 chips.
Wait, really? Just 10 or 20,000?
Yeah. So giving a single company access to 75,000 is essentially giving them the keys to build an absolute AI empire.
So we need to talk about the hardware itself.
Mhm.
What actually is an H200 chip? The sources make a point to clarify that this is not NVIDIA's absolute newest cutting-edge technology, right?
Right, that is true. NVIDIA has newer architectures coming out, which they call Blackwell or Rubin.
Okay.
So the H200 is technically a step slightly below the absolute bleeding edge. But make no mistake, it is an incredibly powerful piece of technology.
How powerful?
Well, simply put, this chip boasts 141 gigabytes of memory and a massive amount of data bandwidth.
Okay, let's break that down for someone who doesn't build computers. What this really means is it can juggle a huge amount of information all at the exact same time without crashing.
Exactly. Think of an AI model like a master chef trying to cook a complicated, massive feast for thousands of people.
I like that.
The memory of the chip is the size of the kitchen counter. The bandwidth is how fast that chef can run back and forth, grabbing ingredients from the fridge.
So you need a big space and fast hands.
Right. If you are building artificial intelligence, the kind that can instantly write code, generate videos, or process millions of search requests from your phone, you need a giant counter and incredibly fast hands. The H200 gives you exactly that.
So the hardware is an absolute beast. These giant tech companies clearly need this level of computing power to stay competitive. Which brings me to the core contradiction here.
The staring contest.
Yeah. Simply put, it's like handing out VIP tickets to the most anticipated concert of the year, but absolutely no one is walking through the doors. If these companies desperately need AI computing power, why are their hands still in their pockets?
To figure out why the line is stalled, we have to look at the seller's side first.
Okay, let's look at NVIDIA and the U.S.
The delay really originates from the incredibly complex conditions the U.S. placed on the deal. They opened the door, but they put a massive obstacle course right in the doorway.
Wait, I'm struggling to see why NVIDIA would even agree to an obstacle course.
Yeah.
If the rules are that hard, why doesn't NVIDIA just walk away? I mean, is the Chinese market really worth that much headache for them?
Oh, NVIDIA is highly motivated because they are watching a fortune vanish. The historical data in our sources shows that NVIDIA used to own 95% of China's advanced AI chip market.
95%, that's a complete monopoly.
It was. China accounted for roughly 13% of NVIDIA's total global revenue.
That is tens of billions of dollars.
Exactly. But due to previous export blocks, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang recently admitted their share of that market has fallen to practically zero.
Ouch.
So to try and unblock this specific deal, Huang actually joined President Donald Trump on a trip to Beijing.
Yeah, the report said Trump picked Huang up in Alaska on the way there. That is wild.
It really is unusual.
You don't get the CEO of the world's most valuable tech company flying with the president unless the stakes are existential for their business. So they get the approval. But the U.S. government attached some very heavy strings.
Very heavy. The rules issued in January are just a tangle of administrative conditions. First, the Chinese buyers have to prove they have strict security procedures in place.
To make sure they aren't used for the military.
Right. Ensuring the chips will never be used for anything military. Second, the chips must undergo rigorous third-party testing.
Who does the testing? And doesn't that take a lot of time?
Independent auditors have to verify the hardware and the software limits. That takes a lot of time and a lot of money. On top of that, NVIDIA has to certify that they have enough inventory back in the United States.
Why does that matter?
They have to legally prove they aren't starving their American clients just to rush these new Chinese orders out the door.
That sounds like an administrative nightmare for the lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where it gets really strange. The sources highlight a specific financial requirement called the 25% rule. How does that work?
So the Trump administration negotiated an arrangement to take a 25% cut of the revenue from these chip sales.
Okay, a tax.
But because of U.S. legal constraints, you cannot just slap a simple export tax on these goods directly. They had to create a very messy physical workaround.
A physical workaround for a digital technology product.
Yeah. Under this new rule, the chips actually have to pass through U.S. territory before they can be delivered to China.
Wait, what?
They might be manufactured in Asia, but they have to physically detour to the United States so the government can officially collect this fee under the established legal framework.
Let me get this straight from a layman's perspective. The chips are built in a factory in Asia. The buyers are in Asia. But the U.S. is basically saying, sure, buy our stuff, but we're going to tax it heavily, inspect it thoroughly, and make it take a massive physical detour across the ocean and back first. Why even allow this sale at all?
I know, it sounds completely counterintuitive, but if you look closely at the underlying logic, it is a highly calculated move to maintain leverage.
Leverage how?
It comes down to something called the American technology ecosystem. Hardware like the H200 chip doesn't just work on its own out of the box.
It needs software to run, right?
More than just basic software. NVIDIA chips rely on a very specific proprietary programming platform called CUA.
Okay.
Over the years, an entire global environment of developers has learned how to build AI using only this specific architecture. It creates what the industry calls vendor lock-in.
I see. It's a bit like if you spent 10 years buying movies, apps, and music on an iPhone. Switching to a different brand of phone means you lose everything and have to start over.
That is a great comparison. Now multiply that headache by billions of dollars. If the U.S. cuts China off completely and sells them zero chips, they force China into a corner.
Right.
Out of pure necessity, Chinese tech giants will throw all their unlimited resources into building their own independent hardware and their own software ecosystem from scratch.
Which means the U.S. loses all influence
Right.
and have zero visibility into what China is building.
Exactly. But if the U.S. keeps selling them just enough advanced technology, even with heavy taxes, detours, and conditions, the Chinese companies might find it easier in the short term to just keep using the American system.
That is clever.
The logic in Washington is that keeping foreign companies dependent on American software maintains U.S. power.
Okay, that makes sense. The U.S. made it painfully difficult, but intentionally so, to thread this needle between making money, maintaining their ecosystem, and not giving away their absolute best weapons.
Exactly.
But water is water in a desert. If these companies need the computing power to survive, they will jump through the hoops.
Right. And that brings us to the biggest plot twist in these sources. The delay isn't actually because the Chinese companies are struggling to meet the U.S. conditions. No, Beijing is the one pumping the brakes.
The sources are clear that despite getting the U.S. approval, deals are stalling because Chinese firms are pulling back based on guidance from their own government. This goes against everything we thought we knew about their demand for these chips.
It is a profound shift in behavior. Based on the reporting, we can trace this hesitation back to 4 major structural concerns in Beijing. Let's look at the domestic market first.
Okay.
China is trying to build its own homegrown chip makers, like Huawei, to compete globally.
And the reports mention that domestic AI firms like DeepSeek are increasingly talking about how they rely on those local Huawei chips. DeepSeek is making huge waves in the AI world right now.
They are. But to improve complex technology, you need constant trial and error. Domestic chip makers need big, demanding clients with deep pockets.
Right, they need the feedback.
Exactly. They need companies willing to buy their chips, test them in the real world, and patiently work through the inevitable software bugs.
So if Alibaba and Tencent take all their billions of dollars and buy tens of thousands of reliable NVIDIA chips, the domestic industry starves.
Yes, exactly.
Huawei loses the critical funding and the real-world testing they desperately need to catch up.
By slowing down these NVIDIA purchases, Beijing is essentially forcing its domestic tech giants to spend their money at home. It forces them to invest in their own independent ecosystem.
It is short-term pain for long-term independence. That makes perfect logical sense. But what about the physical logistics we talked about earlier?
The detour.
Yeah, that huge detour the chips have to take to pay the 25% fee. Doesn't that cause massive security anxiety?
That is the second major concern. In April 2026, China's State Council issued strict new regulations regarding supply chain security.
Okay.
From Beijing's perspective, a massive shipment of critical hardware taking an unnecessary physical detour into a U.S. port raises every single red flag imaginable.
Because they have zero control over the boxes while they sit in another country.
Right. The sources point out that this physical detour prompts deep unease over potential tampering.
Like spy chips or something.
Exactly. There is a real fear that hidden vulnerabilities or tracking mechanisms could be physically introduced into the hardware while it is sitting in the United States.
Wow.
That directly clashes with China's new government-wide mandate to eliminate foreign dependencies and secure their infrastructure.
Okay, so the physical detour makes them nervous about hardware tampering. But even if they check the chips and they are totally clean, aren't they still taking a massive business risk?
What do you mean?
I mean, building an entire operation around a supplier that Washington could just ban again next week.
Yes. That brings us to the third issue, the fear of unpredictable dependency. Building an AI data center is an enormous undertaking. You aren't just buying laptops and plugging them in.
Right, you are building factories.
It costs billions of dollars and takes years of planning. You have to construct specialized buildings, massive power grids, and advanced liquid cooling systems, all designed around the specific heat and power requirements of the chip you choose.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. The building is customized for the chip.
Exactly. Why would an executive spend billions building an entire city of servers around an NVIDIA chip if the policy could change overnight?
You wouldn't. It's like building a massive state-of-the-art skyscraper. But your landlord can legally evict you with zero notice, keeping everything you built.
The long-term business risk is simply too high. If you design your facility for the H200 and then the supply is suddenly cut off because of a new political dispute, you are left with a half-finished, totally useless data center.
That's a disaster.
Right. So many executives seem to be deciding that a slower domestic chip that they know they can get is better than a faster foreign chip that might just vanish.
Which naturally leads us to the final piece of the puzzle. Leverage. By hesitating, China isn't just protecting itself, it is sending a message.
They are demonstrating to both Washington and NVIDIA that market access is no longer a one-way street dictated solely by American policy.
They can just walk away.
They are showing that they have the economic discipline to walk away from the table, yeah.
So it's basically a geopolitical poison chalice. You're starving, and Washington is handing you a sandwich.
A very expensive sandwich.
Right. You need the calories right now to survive the global AI race. But you know that if you take it, you stop learning how to farm your own food.
Exactly.
Plus, because of that weird U.S. detour rule, you're terrified they sneak something weird into the sandwich while they were making it in their kitchen.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize the friction. It perfectly captures the impossible choice they face right now.
It's quite a dilemma.
They need the computational power to stay competitive today, but accepting it comes with long-term strategic costs, immediate security anxieties, and a total loss of leverage.
When you lay it all out like that, it makes total sense why the cargo planes haven't taken off.
Yeah.
Every single chip represents a massive strategic compromise for whoever buys it.
It really does.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, who might just be trying to understand where technology is heading next? We've gone through the hardware, the thorny U.S. conditions, and China's strategic hesitation.
If we synthesize everything from these reports, we are looking at a fundamental shift in how the world works. This is not just a business story about a delayed shipment of electronics.
No, it's way bigger.
It shows us that the global AI race is evolving. It is no longer just a simple contest to see who can design the absolute fastest, most powerful piece of silicon.
Right. It's so much bigger than just raw processing speed or memory bandwidth.
The race is now about who controls the entire supply chain from start to finish. It is about who can build the most robust software ecosystem that developers actually trust.
The lock-in effect we talked about.
Exactly. And crucially, it is about who can survive intense, unpredictable geopolitical pressure. This matters directly to you because every time you open an AI app on your phone to summarize an email or generate an image, you are relying on an ecosystem that is currently the subject of this massive tug of war.
It's all connected.
The foundational architecture of the next generation of computing is being negotiated right now through these delayed shipments and complex rules.
It is absolutely fascinating to see how a single piece of hardware or chip you can literally hold in your hand gets caught in the very center of a global power struggle.
It is.
And looking at all this evidence, it leaves us with one massive, lingering question to think about. If this massive H200 deal completely falls apart and no chips are ever delivered, does it actually help the U.S. contain China's AI ambitions? Or does it accidentally force China to become completely self-sufficient much faster than anyone predicted? Think about that next time you use an AI app.